Next, we're going to get into the segment, probably one of my favorites because it's one of the ones I'm most passionate about. It's taking questions from owners every single day and highlighting some of those that, for whatever reason, have inspired me or made me passionate the previous month. So we are going to get into this month's question of the week. All right. Now, as we dive into this, I have to tell you, this was so hard for me to choose from. I had a couple owners that highlighted a couple questions, and I almost brought them both here. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to table one. There's plenty of months to come, plenty of discussion to happen. So I'm gonna bring up this one because it also highlights, and I probably say this with every question that comes up because I hear so many different questions coming from owners almost equally. But without a doubt, one of the biggest concerns from most owners looking for a new property management company or their first property management company hire is the communication and the transparency along with it. So the question I got, here we go. And I never want to mess any of these up here. So I write them all down before I start reporting this. Here's the question I got. How often will I get updates on my property? That's a really good question because, again, it relates directly to the communication and transparency of what's going on with your property. Now, let me rephrase that. And how should you be asking that question to get a more detailed response that's going to relate to the communication and transparency? Here's how I would ask that question. How do you proactively communicate so I'm not chasing updates or left in the dark on my property? Now, the reason I would ask that question, because you're not just looking for updates in regards to any one area, but the communication and transparency is so important through so many different aspects. And Mike, I'm going to give you a chance to chime in here, but I'm going to highlight these are areas that you want to discuss with your property management company because this is where you want updates on your property. So updates from the marketing process, of course, right? You want to know what's going on during the marketing of your property. You want consistent updates so that you can make changes to whatever your marketing strategy might be in order to attract the highest quality tenant in the least amount of time. That vacancy is so expensive. And Mike, chime in. I'm going to go through a couple of these real quick. In fact, let me just hit these and then I'll let you speak. So marketing. Maintenance requests, right? God, how important is it to make sure that you're informed quickly on the maintenance requests so that you can react quickly? God, the number one factor in tenant retention is maintenance handling. Non-payment of rent, huge, right? I mean, anytime a tenant doesn't pay on time and you don't inform that owner, every single time that owner is going to be a little bit more upset. They want to know if they should expect not getting their rent on time for that month. Not renewing a lease agreement, of course, right? You need to be able to reach out to that tenant in a timely manner, discuss the lease renewal options, and then inform the owner. So those are updates going on along the way. Consistent updates, even when it becomes annoying. And then, of course, the most obvious one is just simple requests that are coming from the tenant. You know, can I paint this wall? Can I hang this on the wall? Things like that, and transparency and communication. All right, Mike, what are your thoughts? I mean, how often will I get updates on my property? How important is that question? And make sure that you're asking it the right way.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just add to that, Chris, to kind of complete the life cycle, though, is lease renewal. Is, how are you contacted during lease renewal? When are you contacted at lease renewal? How involved are you? That kind of stuff. So just one more maybe contact point. I mean, it's the number one thing that we hear from all owners is communication is the most important part.
Yes.
Right. And here that we have invested so much time, effort, and money over the last, 2 years to improve the communication to the owners. I mean, it's something we do every day, every week. We talk about it, and we analyze it. If we miss something, how can we tweak it, make it better? So, I mean, gosh, I could go on for days about how we communicate.
I know.
Like I said, we try really, really hard. I think one of the best things that we do is during the marketing stage because it's such a crucial stage.
I knew I shouldn't have let you talk yet. I knew it.
I can take something else. You want to take that one?
No, I'm kidding. No, keep going.
During the marketing stage, and talk about transparency. So we send a Loom video to our owners, and we just go over the marketing report that we have. So it's our internal marketing report that shows how many showings we've had, how many requests we've had, any feedback that we have, and we just go over that with the owners and say, hey, here's what we're getting, here's what we're seeing this week. and we do it on a weekly basis because we're diligent. We want to have that home leased up as quickly as possible, definitely under 30 days. And so if we're not looking at this at least on a weekly basis, then it's too much. It's too much time has elapsed in between. So we need to react. We want our owners to react quickly, make some price reductions quickly, or condition adjustments if needed. But anyway, we need to be looking at this on a weekly basis and making adjustments on a weekly basis. So, I mean, talk about transparency and communication. You really have to ramp up the communication during the vacancy period because it's so important. Like you said, it is so expensive. And so we really try to ramp that up during that period in order to drive that vacancy down.
Exactly. Yes. And you're right. We could go on for days because, and that's actually one of the reasons I chose this question is, and this part of the podcast is not designed to just highlight what Red Door does. Although, of course, we speak on that because, well, we work with Red Door and we want to inform you on what Red Door does in relation to these questions. But even more importantly for this podcast purpose is that you can inquire with new property management companies and be informed and see how their process might relate to what we're doing and where we are personally finding success. So now back to what Red Door does. Yes, even prior to the marketing process, and back to the reason I chose this question is because I know how much of a financial investment we've made into this recently over the past couple of years, and not only financial but also time, which also obviously equates to financial in the long run. But the time investment that in the processes that we've built regarding so many more processes than the ones I highlighted here at the beginning. There are so many processes that your individual owner would not even be aware of in order to effectively manage their property and maximize their ROI, how to get into those very minute details of every individual process. Now, back to even just the onboarding of your property and the updates and transparency and the communication. And we have beat to death how we go through a market readiness assessment with your property and the updates required. And this is just developing the relationship with you. So if you can't have consistent updates regarding the market readiness of your property, I can guarantee you that down the line, it's very unlikely rather to improve the communication process. So, and that's identifying anything that the property needs, any vendor relationship quotes and updates all along the way as those are being completed and as we get closer to the marketing process. Mike already mentioned the marketing updates that we provide our owners, which is absolutely essential in reducing your vacancy time frame and making quick decisions so that you can place a tenant quickly. And then again, I have to re-highlight the maintenance request portion because, and it's a lot like the early on market readiness assessment updates, but it's informing owners quickly when there is a maintenance request, because if there's any important aspect aside from the market readiness portion in order to maximize your ROI, it's tenant retention. And the number one thing that's going to result in tenant retention is responding to maintenance requests rather in a timely manner and ensuring that maintenance requests are handled properly. So all of these updates all along the way. And in fact, our process is built out so elaborate that it probably annoys some of our owners that they get so many updates, along the onboarding process, because the details is what matters in giving you the updates along the way. So it can be a little bit annoying at times, but I assure you that is the side that you want to default on, is over communicating rather than under communicating. So I think I've said all I can say. I mean, I'm so passionate about this portion. Yeah. We all are. And we've worked, there's so many different aspects to the property management world that narrowing down these details has been, a 15-year process since I've been with Red Door, that's for sure. And, there's still work to be done, of course.
Of course.
But yeah.
There's so much. We could do a podcast on just like communication with owners and what to expect, when to expect it, go through the whole life cycle. I mean, we could talk about it for an hour, I swear.
Yeah. And there's some owners that want to be kept up on every detail that happens on the property. And then there's, of course, the owners that own 10, 15 properties. And as long as they're with a trusted property management company and you haven't defaulted on that trust factor, then they're like, $1,000 maintenance limit. Do whatever you can to maximize my tenant retention. And they just are hands off, and they will just mark that communication as read and move on with life. So that is what you should be doing. You need to get into the nitty gritty details on how you're going to be updated, not just from the onboarding and marketing process, but for every process along the way, so that you can maximize your ROI when you're reaching out to your property management company or your new property management company. Of course, all of these questions are going to be uploaded in detail on all of our social media channels, which those will be neatly outlined here at the bottom of our graphics, which leads us to our next segment, which is going to be your Indy Market Report updates for, let's see, this is going to be for May of 2025. So we're now in June. We are going to report on May numbers. Are you ready to move on, Mike?